A warning before we begin. This series contains reference to sexual abuse.
A pirate radio station peddling its daily wares. There are now at least 20 such illegal stations around the country.
As the 1980s dawned in Ireland, change was in the airwaves.
Thank you very much indeed, Brendan, and welcome to the first show on Radio 2.
If Eamon Cooke and Radio Dublin had led the Irish pirate scene in the late 70s, their success with younger audiences spurred others into action, including the national broadcaster.
rte, Radio 2. Yeah, well, we've been waiting for an all-day nationwide music station for a long time. Now we have it.
RTE launched just its second radio station in its history, Radio 2, now 2FM.
An Irish group could top the British chart. Yes, indeed, the Boomtown Rat.
And a new breed of super pirate radio stations were about to rewrite the rulebook.
The best music on Radio Nova.
Radio Dublin was still broadcasting around the clock on its AM frequency, and Eamon Cooke continued his weekly news show.
I was looking there through the papers just a short while before the news to see what matches there are, but I got a quick couple of glances at it.
But when the super pirate stations embraced FM, well, it's like the radio waves of Ireland turned from black and white to Technicolor.
Super Stereo.
A new sound for a new decade.
This is the FM leader, Sunshine 101.
Change was in the air for Eamon Cooke too.
The trail was blazed by Radio Dublin, run by Eamon Cooke from a terraced house in Inchicore.
He was leaving his home on Sarsfield Road and taking everything, including Radio Dublin, with him to a new building not far away.
He's gradually extended his operation. Audiences and advertisers have followed. Radio Dublin showed that there was money to be made and that anyone could make it. It was illegal, of course.
Cooke's new home at 58 Inchicore Road was a ramshackle detached Victorian bungalow on its own grounds, with plenty of room for the 100-foot transmitter aerial to tower over the property.
The place was a little on the rough side with big holes in the floor. The same floor was also seemingly the main ashtray in the house.
This description of Radio Dublin was written by a visiting English journalist in 1981.
The station looked like a local hangout for all and sundry. Some of the guys in the living room were throwing burning bits of paper at each other.
There were tiles missing off the roof. The place was in absolute bits. A lot of the house was derelict.
This is Neil Hayes, the Radio Dublin DJ we met in our last episode, together with his photographs of Jimmy Savile.
The transmitter room was secure, and it was secured by a big steel door.
That was also his bedroom, wasn't it?
That was his bedroom. That's where he lived. That's where his heating came from the transmitter. No one was allowed into Eamon's room.
One day, when Eamon Cooke was out, Neil was able to sneak in and take photos of Cooke's bedroom, which looks, well, dangerous.
It was quite a smelly room. There was a bed in the corner. Definitely a bed that hadn't seen sheets or duvets changed in an awful long time. Just kind of mouldy. It had electric wires on the window to prevent entrance, like an electric fence running across the window, which I have pictures of here.
Eamon Cooke didn't just electrify the windows. He did the same to the metal doors.
When they put steel doors into the station, they used to tell the electrician, don't come near the place because those doors are electrocuted. If you touch them, you'll get electrocuted.
It made his home at the Radio Dublin studios a bit of a fortress, protected from the authorities.
The window would have been wired up to mains.
That's dangerous.
Well, it's dangerous for someone trying to get through the window.
Cooke weaponised electricity. 20 years after his first wife, Helena, died from touching a kettle in their home, the same danger now existed in Cooke's new Inchicore residence.
I remember one day making a cup of tea and I went to the kitchen downstairs behind the studio and I got an electric shock just from putting on the kettle, just from touching the area near the kettle in the kitchen.
The 1980s were going to be a decade where Eamon Cooke continued to defy the authorities, both on air at Radio Dublin and in the shadows as a serial child abuser. But his control was under threat, and as some of his victims grew into young adults, they began to fight back. I'm Peter Mulryan. From RTE Documentary on 1, this is Pirate Predator, Episode 5, Defiance. After the staff mutiny and Eamon Cooke's departure from Sarsfield Road, Siobhan and Anne were free of his abuse. But as Anne remembers, the captain cast a long shadow.
Eamon Cooke then never stopped stalking me. There was no point in my teenage evolution where Eamon Cooke was not a factor, where he wasn't in the shadows somewhere, where he wasn't going to pop out somewhere, where he wasn't going to drive along and torment me in his car.
Siobhan also remembers Cooke kept a close eye on her and others he had previously abused.
And he would curb crawl as well. He would drive in his car, one of the Jaguars, and he'd slow down as you're walking by, and he'd slow down real slow and then speed off.
Even though Eamon Cooke was intimidating me constantly, I refused to let him see. So if he was rolling alongside me on the curb in his car and his window down and he's saying stuff out the window to me, I wouldn't engage with him. I wouldn't talk to him, I wouldn't look, I would just keep walking as though he didn't exist.
Even though Siobhan and Anne had outgrown the physical grip of Eamon Cooke, they could see new children, new victims taking their place.
And he might have another child that we don't know who it would be in the front seat with him.
Cooke almost always seemed to have a child in his presence.
Hello, my name is Jerry Byrne. I operate a radio station in London called irishradio.org. I've been involved in radio for in excess at this stage of 40 years.
As Jerry was only starting out in his radio life, it was about 1981 when he went to see the Radio Dublin studios.
The first time I met Eamon Cooke, I arrived in Radio Dublin. He was going someplace and he had the Jaguar car, which he sort of was well known for driving. The one little strange thing I found was he was going somewhere, so I went with him wherever he was going. He was calling in someplace. He put me in the back seat of the car. And then there was this young child who was about sort of 6, 7, 8, I would have thought at the time, and he was in the front seat. And I made the comment, "Oh, is this one of yours?" You know, I thought it was his son. And he sort of kind of smiled and stuff. No, he said. It's patently obvious now what was going on.
Cooke didn't just exert control over his victims when they were in his presence. Even away from him, he wanted them to know he was watching and listening.
Because he used to tell us when we were in the house that he had the house bugged. And you'd be going to the loo and you'd be saying, "Can you hear what we're thinking?"
Siobhan again.
What he used to do was connect into your telephone wires to all the people in the area. He'd connect into their telephones. I think it was to do with because he was cut off. So he'd tap into other people's to get their lines.
Anne and Siobhan navigated their teenage years in the 80s, carrying far more than most girls of their age.
So when other girls were finding out naturally the biology of a young man, I had already known. So I wouldn't say I wasn't interested in boys, but I didn't want to really have anything to do with them. And that's one of the things I think was taken away from a person when they're abused at a young age. So I was very good at, putting things into little compartments in my mind. So that just went into a box and that was closed. And I never said a word in school to anybody. I never told anybody.
Siobhan's parents both knew what had happened to her. Anne, on the other hand, had told absolutely no one of her abuse, which isolated her even further.
And of course, I was locked into the fact that my parents didn't know. So because my parents didn't know, there was no one I could go to say, "Look, this is really, I'm finding this harder and harder to deal with as I get older."
Mary, who we met in our last episode, also struggled through her teenage years after her abuse alongside Siobhan and Anne.
I wasn't offered any counselling at the time because I never spoke about it. But in my own way, like, I developed a different thing where I would constantly clean. I'd be very, very OCD. And I don't ever remember being like that until I got into my teenage years, until I realised what actually happened to me. And then I wanted everything clean. Like, I'd scrub my hands raw. You know, I'd wash myself, that in itself, I had to come to terms with and understand why I was like that. But sure, I didn't know that was a reaction to what had happened to me.
When I arrived into Radio Dublin's studios as a 19-year-old in 1981, I'd no idea any of this was going on. I'd come to interview Eamon Cooke as part of a book I was writing on pirate radio. Thinking back now, I don't actually remember any of what he said to me when I first met him, but I do remember the scene very clearly. The studio was dark. Cooke sipped tea from a mug, chain-smoked, and stared at the ground. To my right, a slight girl was sunk into a beaten-up sofa. She had a child in her lap. I now know that was Cooke's first child, and the young mother was only 16 or 17 years old. But back then, I just thought it was strange and a bit odd that a young girl and a baby were there when I was interviewing Cooke, which is probably why it stuck with me. Don't forget, at this stage, Cooke was still married to his second wife, Joan.
She told me one day that she was the second wife. And I said, OK, what happened to the first wife then? Which is, she fell down the stairs and he found her at the end of the stairs one morning. She thinks she broke her neck. And I thought, OK.
It must have been a really strange time for Joan when Cooke fathered his first child with that young girl, because Joan was still living with him. DJ Sean Meany.
He seemed to be in control of Joan, telling everyone what to do. You know, you'd be guessing what happened there, because whether she was in a relationship with him or whether they come to some agreement or whether she'd found out maybe, and maybe he knew that she found out. I mean, I'm guessing.
Sean remembers Joan well, because she was the one who fired him from Radio Dublin after he'd seen Cooke on top of a young girl.
And it was Joan that told me. You see, he'd never approached me about anything. Joan, he would give Joan the job of hiring and firing, as it were, or explaining things. So yeah, he never really confronted me about anything. She seemed to do everything to do with the studio, and she was quite a nervous character. I'm not sure if she suffered badly with her nerves. Again, she used to smoke quite a lot, you know.
Joan was clearly another of Cooke's victims, though in a very different way to the children he abused. Meanwhile, throughout the early 80s, pirate radio was surging, posing an escalating headache for Irish authorities.
It was a week of mixed news for the many pirate radio stations now operating in this country. A survey claimed that the pirates now have 60% of the listening audience under the age of 25, and the operators now claim they have more listeners in the Dublin area than RTE's Radio 2. But in the Dáil, the Minister, Mr Cooney, announced he would be introducing legislation providing for fines of up to £10,000 for illegal broadcasting, a move welcomed by
The music's just begun.
While the legal battles over pirate radio rumbled on, Eamon Cooke remained a fixture in the Irish radio landscape, even appearing on RTE Radio 1 to project an image entirely at odds with his reality as a paedophile.
Radio Dublin has always been involved with, say, at Christmas time, the toy appeal, Easter time, the eggs for the children. How did that idea come about?
I think it just started from people asking, could we lend a hand? They were down and out coming up to Christmas time. Could we lend a hand, get them something for this, that and the other, or get clothes for the children or toys for them or whatever. It just escalated from there onwards.
Cooke was now trying to legitimise Radio Dublin, to go legal and get a broadcast licence.
Sunday Independent. It's a new battle for commercial radio licences. So far, only one pirate radio station owner, Eamon Cooke of Radio Dublin, has indicated his interest in securing a licence.
At 17 minutes past 1 this morning, Mr Bobby Sands, the IRA MP for Fermanagh South Tyrone, died.
During the 1981 Northern Ireland hunger strikes, Bobby Sands' death sparked mass protests across the island, including attempts to take over pirate radio stations to broadcast Republican messages.
H-blockers and their supporters were breaking into radio stations to put their message across.
Another attempt was made to clear the road, this time at high speed.
As the station came under attack from protesters, DJ Neil Hayes assumed Eamon Cooke would defend Radio Dublin and its young employees, but instead he took the coward's way out.
They came towards the radio station. Eamon was up, he was fidgeting, and they attacked the radio station. They smashed down the windows at the front, and I was in there. I got injured in the incident. But Eamon had jumped out the window, out the back, and he'd scurried down a drain pipe and down to the tracks. And he appeared then at the back of the crowd, if you know what I mean. The crowd were all at the front of the radio station, the front of the building, and suddenly Eamon appeared at the back.
Throughout all of this time, Cooke continued to abuse children. How many, we don't know. For some of Cooke's victims, like Áine, they continued to struggle daily with the after effects of his abuse.
It's not that the person's entire moral compass is crushed, but their sexual compass is crushed when it is interfered with as a young child. The development of your sexual identity, the development of your sexual autonomy is crushed. Your compass is just all over the place. So that is a very typical, but it's, I mean, I can say it's typical, but for living with it and experiencing it was very different.
Remember, if there's something happening in your area, let us know. It's Radio Dublin here in Dublin 8. Back to the songs now, and still that current jazz section.
Cooke continued to come up with yet more inventive ways of gaining power and access to even more young women when he launched the annual Miss Radio Dublin competition.
It wouldn't be all that inaccurate to call green-eyed 20-year-old Janet a proper little miss. Not if you consider that in the last year she has collected an assortment of titles, including Miss Radio Dublin. If her face is familiar, it's because she can also be seen on the sides of buses advertising jeans.
Eamon Cooke was also up to a few other eye-raising ventures at this time, including launching a pop-up pirate station for Fianna Fáil just before the 1982 general election.
Fianna Fáil are the only party capable of providing a stable government. And don't forget, Fianna Fáil are committed to licensing local community radio when they return to office.
Irish Press, 18th of February 1982. The latest illegal radio station broadcasting pop music in Dublin is run by Fianna Fáil from their Dublin headquarters near the GPO. Last night, Captain Eamon Cooke, head of the illegal Radio Dublin, confirmed that his organisation had installed the transmitting equipment for Fianna Fáil some days ago.
Eamon Cooke probably hoped that backing Charlie Haughey would help him secure his Radio Dublin licence. But in true political fashion, denials quickly followed.
A Fianna Fáil spokesperson, who said he was in charge of Dublin Central bill posters, denied that they had transmitting equipment installed.
Fianna Fáil went on to win that election under Charlie Haughey, having harnessed some of the youth vote with Eamon Cooke's help. But no licence was forthcoming. Throughout the early 80s, Radio Dublin broadcast request shows and sent recordings to Irish troops in the Lebanon. They even flew out DJs for live shows.
As well as that your request for the Lebanon. If you've got any you'd like played on the show tomorrow, well then get them into me.
By raising funds for army widows and running official army ads, Cooke gained another layer of respectability.
We'll see you all tomorrow when we'll be recording the show for the troops. Sunday Radio Dublin, Dublin 10. Bye-bye, God bless you.
The following year, 1984, Eamon Cooke was back in the headlines, but for all the wrong reasons. By now, the young woman who had fathered his first child had broken free and cut off contact.
Do you want to say your name yourself?
George, that's all I want to say, not a second name, because if it's on tape, I don't want to incriminate myself.
This is George. He used to work around the pirate radio scene in Dublin, doing security and driving.
We used to go to the radio station, and I used to go and pick up the DJs and bring them there and bring them home.
After escaping Cooke, the young mother of his first child, whom we'll call Claire, started a new relationship. For Cooke, this meant one thing. He'd lost control over her. Having seen a young man with Claire and his young child, Cooke got furious. And this is when he approached George.
Yeah, it was said he was having an affair with his girlfriend or whatever. He just wanted them sorted out.
By now, Claire, her child, her boyfriend, who we're not naming, were living together in a flat on the South Circular Road in Dublin. George introduced Eamon Cooke to a man called Mick.
I knew Mick a long, long time, and he needed money badly. Eamon Cooke told me give him so much, so I just put him in contact with Mick.
Cooke wanted Claire's new boyfriend hurt, and he didn't care if she and their child were caught in the crossfire.
He wanted badly damaged. Catch him when he's coming in the flat or whatever.
Cooke agreed to pay Mick £100 and a Christmas hamper for the job.
Mick just went and bought a bottle of petrol and made the petrol bomb.
Mick had filled a milk bottle full of petrol. He lit it and lobbed it in the window of the flat, setting the place alight.
The upstairs occupants escaped from the burning building, but an occupant downstairs suffered from severe inhalation of fumes and was rushed to St. James's Hospital.
Luckily, Claire, her child and her boyfriend were all out at the time of the attack, but their flatmate was injured.
Garda forensic experts examined the scene, and at lunchtime on Saturday, a man was arrested.
I was just taken away, handcuffed, and they said, "You're up for attempted murder." And I said, "What?" It wasn't me. All I did was, as I said, introduce Eamon Cooke to Mick, and that was it. That's as far as it went.
5 Dublin men were charged in connection with the setting on fire of a house on the South Circular Road on November 23rd last.
Somebody grasped because they got the whole lot of us.
Throughout 1985, Cooke and the 4 men he'd involved in doing his dirty work awaited trial. Radio Dublin kept on broadcasting with Eamon Cooke still at the helm, and Cooke kept on abusing children.
So listeners out there, if you support Radio Dublin, we do like you to listen in. By all means, ring us in for a request right into the station here. Let's know what you think of this station. Some of your letters in this week, now the language, I couldn't read them out over the air. I can understand your...
Disturbingly, since this series began publishing, we've been contacted by someone who I've spoken with and who has told us the following.
I know that in the mid-1980s, Eamon Cooke and an associate from Radio Dublin routinely targeted competing radio stations, cutting down their aerials or sabotaging their equipment. More alarmingly, I recently learned that Cooke's accomplice was suspected of child abuse and came under Garda investigation before taking his own life, a fact I've since confirmed with his family. A third man, frequently in their company but not involved in Radio Dublin, has also since been exposed for exploiting children. I suspect there could even have been a wider circle of offenders involved. Either way, I believe Eamon Cooke at times operated within a paedophile ring, where those involved were likely covering each other's tracks, trading victims, or abusing them together.
While we cannot independently corroborate this information, the caller did provide us with those men's names, together with other details that sadly do add up. We also got a tip-off of another paedophile ring around Thomas Street in the 1960s, again with names, including Eamon Cooke. Throughout 1986, Cooke awaited trial on charges relating to that arson attack on the home of the mother of his first child. 1986 was also the same year Anne decided to break her silence around Cooke's abuse. She confided in Siobhan's mother, who was shocked to learn Anne's family didn't know and urged her to tell them.
I went home and I called my dad at work. And I said, Dad, I need to talk to you. Can you come home? He was in that front door within 10 minutes. I stood in front of him in the kitchen and said to him, Dad, I need to tell you that Eamon Cooke abused me. He just guided me to the couch, said, sit there, you're okay. He went out, he made a call to the Rape Crisis Centre. And from that point on, he began delivering me for help, or what he perceived was going to help. But of course, he had no clue of the depth or the extent of the abuse. That was something that neither of my parents or any of my family ever really got to touch upon.
But keeping the abuse in for so long had a devastating impact on Anne.
Alcohol very quickly took hold, which of course just leaves you more vulnerable, more subject to different kinds of abuse, more subject to self-abuse, more subject to everything.
Having broken her silence on Cooke's abuse, Anne now wanted him stopped and decided it was finally time to bring her allegations to Gardaí.
So I tried to gather together a group of victims who I knew were victims to go with me to the guards, and we were going to tell the guards. And that would stop him, in my mind.
What did the guards do?
Nothing. Nothing.
You mean nothing?
When I say nothing, I don't know what the guards did, is the actual truth.
Whatever Gardaí did with the information, it didn't affect Eamon Cooke's arson trial, which began on October 22nd, 1986, as George remembers.
I know you was there, Cooke. We were all there. There was me, Mick, Eamon Cooke. Yeah, there was five of us.
As the mastermind behind the attack, the judge wanted to deal with Eamon Cooke separately 2 weeks later. However, the judge did hand down sentences to George and his accomplices that day.
2 men who admitted setting fire to a flat with the intention of injuring a man who was friendly with a former girlfriend of Captain Eamon Cooke, the owner of Radio Dublin, were given a 4-year and a 3-year suspended sentence at Dublin Circuit Criminal Court yesterday. 2 other men who admitted conspiring to cause grievous bodily harm were given 1-year suspended sentences.
That newspaper article, published on October 23rd, 1986, is the exact same day Dublin schoolboy Philip Kearns went missing, a case which is still unresolved.
Gardaí in Dublin have appealed for help to trace a missing 13-year-old schoolboy who was last seen leaving his home in Rathfarnham after lunch on Thursday to walk back to school.
Philip's story quickly drew huge media attention, with his mother and father appearing on RTE 5 days after he first disappeared.
It was completely out of character for him to be not to be home. He always came home within a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, unless he had football or unless he had any other activity or.
What do you think has happened from what you know already?
Well, my feeling is that he wasn't the kind of boy that run away or child that run away. He was much too quiet and he wasn't anyway self-assured or that. So the only thing I think somebody or something must have by either coercion or trickery taken him,
Today, the Philip Kearns case remains one of Ireland's most high-profile unsolved mysteries. And if you Google Eamon Cooke, his name will appear as being connected. But back in October 23rd, 1986, the day Philip went missing, Eamon Cooke was likely reeling.
At that stage, he was awaiting the decision of a judge as to whether he was going to be sentenced on charges of firebombing.
Gareth O'Callaghan DJ'd at Radio Dublin when starting out in radio.
The case had been adjourned because the judge wanted to consider whether he would send Cooke to jail or whether it would be a suspended sentence.
Gareth knew Eamon Cooke. He is also a second cousin to Philip Kearns, and at the time Philip went missing, Gareth believes Cooke was on his best behaviour with his own trial just days away.
Cooke wanted to avoid being jailed because he was going to apply for a licence to run a legal radio station. And he was trying to raise money for that purpose, and to have a jail sentence slapped on him would deprive him of the opportunity of applying for a licence. So therefore, if you can imagine, in some strange way, Cooke probably was on some form of best behaviour before the judge.
By the time Cooke was back in court to receive his sentence, Philip Kearns had been missing for 11 days.
The Irish Press, Tuesday, November 4th, 1986. Suspended sentence for pirate boss. The owner of the pirate station, Radio Dublin, was given a 4-year suspended sentence and ordered to enter a bond to keep the peace by the Circuit Criminal Court yesterday. Imposing the suspended sentence, Mr Justice Rowe also ordered Cooke to pay £200
Eamon Cooke had got off yet again.
To the man who suffered smoke.
Join us in episode 6 as Cooke marries for a third time and begins his own family.
That was, I believe, in 1989.
Yeah.
He was married in the UK.
It's also not the last we'll hear of Philip Kearns in this series, or of his potential ties to Eamon Cooke.
Eamon Cooke was maybe in his late 50s, but he was always someone who looked a lot older than he probably was. And he was digging this huge hole in the ground all by himself up the mountains at 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening, and there was a pile of earth maybe 10 feet tall beside him, and he was digging and digging and digging and digging.
If you know anything about Eamon Cooke, please contact us in confidence at documentaries@rte.ie, or you can leave an anonymous tip on rte.ie/pirate predator. If you've been affected by any issues raised in this episode, please visit rte.ie/helplines. Pirate Predator is narrated by me, Peter Mulryan. The series is produced by myself,
Together with me, Nicoline Greer.
And me, Shauna McGreevy.
And me, Liam O'Brien.
The music is composed and performed by me, Alma Kelliher, with Ste Carolan on guitars.
And sound design is by me, Damian Chennells.
Until next time, thanks for listening.